Part 5, How to Meditate. Chapter 19, Trust the Process. Now that I've spent so much time hyping up the benefits of meditation, you're probably thinking that the actual process must be elaborate. Something that's going to bring you increased happiness, health, focus, creativity, balance, and compassion, to say nothing of helping foster world peace, must be complicated, right? Nope. In fact, the practice of meditation is about as simple and effortless as it gets. All it involves is sitting for 20 minutes twice a day with your eyes closed. That's it. Unlike practices like lifting weights, working out, or running that require special equipment or dedicated space, you literally don't need anything to meditate. That's right. As I told you earlier, you don't need a special meditation room with a mat on the floor, the curtains pulled shut, and incense burning. And even though some people find them helpful, you don't really need special meditation benches or cushions either. All you need is a comfortable seat. No bells, no whistles, no machines, no fancy clothes or special workout gear. Just you, your mind, and a seat. And I put need in quotations because the truth is, you don't even really need anywhere particular to sit. Remember, Lord Buddha became enlightened while meditating sitting under a tree. So even a chair, let alone a meditation room, is a bit of a Western luxury. Having said that, I understand that for beginners, it isn't always easy to sit down, close your eyes, and quickly settle into a state of stillness. No, your thoughts have gotten used to making too much noise to just shut up. They have enjoyed too much influence over you to simply fade away the first time you sit down and close your eyes. That's why now I want to walk you through the actual steps of meditation that will allow you to naturally and effortlessly transcend thinking, that will allow you to step out of your stressful world and into a restful state of deep consciousness. The technique I'm talking about, that I'm about to describe, reflects the influence of several different approaches I've learned over the years directly from masters like Bob Roth, who espouses transcendental meditation, and the yoga masters, David Light and Sharon Gannon. I've also incorporated lessons and styles I've learned from various other experts I've meditated with and studied under during my many trips around the world. I'll admit that a few more orthodox meditators might not approve of my mixing up so many styles. But frankly, if you know anything about me, then you know I rarely take an orthodox or traditional approach to doing things. I've already shared this technique with countless friends and they've gotten tremendous value out of it. Some of them really responded to the mantra and ended up being inspired to take the actual TM course, which is highly recommended to anyone who is interested. Others told me that they really connected to the yoga elements and were inspired to explore that practice, which is beautiful too. In order for this journey to lead you to the power and peace inside your heart, it is critical that you trust the prescription I'm about to share with you now. I don't say that out of ego, but rather out of the understanding that to be successful as a student, you must accept your teacher. If you adhere to my authority in following these instructions, I can promise you that all of the attributes we've mentioned will blossom in your own life. What I am about to open up to you is a gateway to the easiest person. Your seat. The first step in meditating is finding a peaceful spot where you can sit in silence for 20 minutes. If it's a quiet place where there aren't a lot of distractions, that's great. But if there's some noise going on around you, don't let that get you bent out of shape. As I mentioned earlier on in the book, a major mistake a lot of beginners make is claiming that they don't have anywhere quiet to meditate and then giving up on the practice before they ever really get started. If you hear the dog barking next door or a car alarm goes off down the street, don't stress over it. Those noises will fade away from your mind, so don't use them as an excuse. The point is, noise will only distract you if you let it. And unless you live in a monastery, in which case you probably aren't going to be reading this guide anyway, chances are you're going to hear some noises during your session. So take a second, listen to them. And rather than get frustrated by them, accept them as part of the world. Let go of any negative emotions you might have toward them and realize that they can't touch or affect your stillness. Noise should never be seen as an obstacle between you and your ability to meditate. Some people, especially those who live in big cities like New York, have asked me about whether or not it's okay to use headphones or earplugs to block out distractions while they meditate. If you find that noises are distracting you to the point where you want to give up the practice, then I suppose it's okay to use headphones or earplugs to get more comfortable. Just remember that ultimately they are crutches, something you should only use until you're able to walk on your own again. You never want to rely on them in order to meditate. This is because the goal of your practice is to take the sense of stillness and peace you experience during meditation and carry it with you as you move through the world, a world that is usually pretty noisy. So unless you plan on wearing earplugs during the rest of your day, I don't think it's in your best interest to meditate with them either. It's much healthier to learn how to not only live with, but also embrace those distractions. Okay, now that we've got the distractions out of the way, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, how you actually sit. Some say the optimal way to sit during meditation is in what is known as the lotus pose. In the lotus, you sit on the floor with your legs crossed, placing your right feet and ankles over your left thigh, and your left feet and ankles over your right thigh. If that's too difficult for you at first, you can start with the half lotus, in which you place your left leg over your right thigh, but place your right foot under your left thigh. You can put whichever leg you prefer on top, which won't force you to stretch your body quite as much. The reason the lotus is considered by many to be the optimal pose is because when you're sitting with a straight back, it opens up your chest. And when your back is straight and your chest is open, it literally puts you in position to be open to all of life's blessings. If you look at all the statues, carvings, and paintings of people meditating that have come from places like Japan, China, Tibet, India, and Nepal over the last several thousand years, you'll see that everyone is sitting with a very similar posture. Back straight, chest open, and hands resting on their legs. That's the posture you could and should be moving toward in your practice. I actually keep several little statues of Buddha meditating around my house, just to remind me of how I should be sitting, even if I'm not always in that perfect alignment. Side note, chair meditation. If you choose to begin this way, make sure you use a straight-backed wooden chair rather than an office chair that's going to lean back, or a sofa chair or love seat. This is because you want to keep a straight back during your meditation, which is much easier on a wooden chair than on something soft that's going to let you sink into it. If you feel like you're having trouble keeping your back straight, try sitting on a small pillow so that your butt is a little bit higher than your knees. Once you're seated, gently push the back of your thighs and your sits bones, the bones in your butt that you sit on, into the chair, while gently pushing your feet into the ground. This is going to help you open up your chest and elongate your spine, which is the basic posture you want to maintain while you're meditating. Even though you are sitting in a chair, do not allow yourself to lean against the back of the chair while you're meditating. You really want to focus on keeping your back straight with as little external support as possible. In time, you'll be comfortable sitting without any support, and then can transition into one of the lotus poses. To make sure your head is in the right position, imagine a piece of string running from the base of your spine up through the top of your head and then all the way into the heavens. If that string feels slack or loose, then you could be in better alignment. But if that imaginary string seems taut, like you're hanging from a hook in the sky, then you've got it. And remember, just as your spirit has no choice but to evolve upward during meditation, it's the same for your spine. Even if you start off slouching, your natural tendency is going to be to straighten yourself out. Also, make sure your hands are resting gently, not balled up into fists or in any way tight. You can place them palms down on your thighs if you're in a chair. If you're in the lotus, you can rest them palms up on your thighs. Finally, allow your shoulders to become relaxed. A lot of times we think that our shoulders are relaxed and fluid, but we are actually holding a lot of tension there. This is why we instinctively start rubbing people's shoulders when we think they're stressed out. So to be sure you're not holding any stress while you meditate, simply roll your shoulders a few times and then let them gently settle. End note. That's the goal. But the reality is that almost no one ever gets it totally right. In some yoga practices, it's even taught that if you were ever able to sit up perfectly straight, you would become completely enlightened and turn into a ball of light. And you don't see many balls of light walking around, do you? Instead, you probably see a lot of people walking around hunched over with bad posture. This is because most Americans aren't very flexible, so simply sitting straight for 20 minutes could prove to be difficult for the average reader at first. If you fall into that category, then don't feel as though you have to start in the lotus at first. If sitting in a chair while you meditate feels better, then please do that. Again, consider the sidebar note for tips on meditating in a chair, as I just read. I don't want anyone reading this to stress over not being able to sit in one of the lotus positions right away. As long as you're sitting without any affliction or discomfort for 20 minutes, then you're on the right road. But no matter how inflexible you feel when you start meditating, I believe that over time, you find yourself moving toward the lotus position that I've prescribed. For example, I have a good friend who I taught how to meditate a few years ago. The first time we practiced, I had him sit in the half lotus position on my living room floor. After 5 minutes, he knew there was no way he could hold that position and simply got up and continued his meditation sitting in a chair. He was a little embarrassed after the 20 minutes were over, as if he'd somehow messed up. But I told him, no, that was perfect. You must be comfortable when you meditate. So if you need to sit in a chair, then do it. So for the next few years, my friend continued to meditate in a chair. Being a writer, he'd spent years hunched over computer screens or slouching on sofas, and sitting with a straight back actually felt weird to him. All that sitting and slouching had literally gotten his spine bent out of shape and his body knocked out of alignment. So even though sitting up straight is the natural way we're supposed to sit, look at a little kid sitting on a kindergarten rug. They're almost always sitting straight up. It can actually feel unnatural until we reacquaint ourselves with it. My friend got a lot of value out of meditating in a chair. He felt more rested, balanced, and at peace with himself, even after just a few days of meditating. And as a writer, he was also really excited to see that his creativity and focus improved almost immediately after starting. But he told me that several months ago, he started to become very aware of how he was slouching while he meditated, how his spine felt compacted and his belly felt as though he were just hanging over his belt. He'd become aware that he didn't want to feel that way when he sat, in meditation or otherwise. So he decided to try the lotus again. And once again, it felt too hard. But this time, he decided to address his lack of flexibility and poor posture instead of ignoring it. He started taking yoga classes to learn how to lengthen his body and sit more easily. He started stretching more when he went to the gym. And after several months of working on his flexibility and posture, he found that he was able to meditate in the lotus position. And he found himself reaping even more benefits from his meditation, which is not to say that he was wasting his time or doing something wrong those first few years he was meditating in a chair. In fact, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He listened to his body. His body told him that sitting with a straight spine was too hard at first, so he didn't push it. And then, when his body told him it was interested in trying to correct itself, he listened to it again and began that transition. So no matter what type of seat, lotus, or the chair you choose to begin your practice in, understand that you've made the right choice. Your mantra. Once you've settled into your seat, it's time to embrace your mantra. Mantra is a Sanskrit, one of the ancient languages of India, term for which there are a lot of different definitions. I like the one that was taught to me by Deepak Chopra, who told me that in Sanskrit, man equals to think, and tra equals tool or instrument. So we should think of a mantra as a tool to help us transcend the noise in our minds. Now, when I give you your mantra shortly, it's going to look like a word, but it's not, because While this mantra has a sound, it doesn't have a meaning. And the reason we're not going to use a mantra with a meaning is because if you were thinking about what your mantra means while you're saying it, then that's just another distraction your mind has to deal with before it can begin truly resting or being still. Look at it this way. If English is your native language and you say the word elephant, then you're going to think of a big four-legged creature with a long trunk every time you say the word. Even if you tell your mind not to, you are still going to see that creature in your thoughts. But if someone were to say the Chinese word for elephant, you wouldn't have any association for that sound. So you could hear it over and over again without actually picturing an elephant. You need to take the same approach to your mantra. When we put associations on words or sounds, they become static. In order to help you reach the depths of the stillness that lies within you, your relationship with your mantra must be fluid and free at all times. The mantra I'm going to share with you now is what's called a mass mantra. It was taught to me by a master who explained that it was one of the mantras that works best for the widest range of people, and particularly because it is gentle on adults' nervous systems. It's a mantra that has been used for thousands of years. So by using it, you will be entering into a collective experience that has been shared by literally hundreds of thousands, probably millions of other people. And the mantra is RUM, R-U-M, RUM. Now, when you see the word RUM on the page, it probably means something to you. Whatever associations you have with the word RUM, let them go. In fact, try to stop thinking of it as a word at all. Instead, just think of it as a vibration. Remember, words are static, vibrations are free. And in meditation, you always want to be free. So once you are seated in your seat and comfortable, say it out loud one time, RUM. Good. Now say it another time, very loudly, RUM. Then repeat it quietly, several times. RUM, RUM, RUM. Inhale deeply and say it once again with a long vibration until you're almost out of breath. RUM. Then try saying it with different emphases. RUM. 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 Once you've said it so many times that you're starting to feel silly doing that, gently close your eyes, then pick whatever version of RUM feels most comfortable and start repeating it gently again. Only this time, not out loud, but in your mind. Now your meditation has begun. Dealing with distractions. As you keep repeating your mantra, staying focused on RUM might be harder than you anticipated. For example, you might find yourself getting physically distracted. Your arm might start to itch. At first, it might just be a vague sensation, but the longer you go without scratching it, that itch might feel like it's getting louder and louder. You'll be trying to focus on the mantra, but your thoughts will keep coming back to that itchy arm. In some practices, you'll be taught to try to ignore that itch, to try to shut it out of your mind by focusing even harder on your mantra or your breathing. But I believe that if you feel an itch, then it's okay to scratch it. I have been taught and have found it to be true that the distractions you create by trying to ignore that itch is actually greater than the distraction created by just scratching it really quick and then letting it go. Because as your mantra helps you sink deeper and deeper into the peace of your heart, you'll have less and less interest in the distractions, to the point where mosquitoes could be biting you, your phone could be ringing off the hook, or Mr. Softy could be parked right outside your window, but those distractions just won't seem important enough for you to address. As you begin to transcend your thoughts, the very idea of scratching an itch or worrying about a noise will seem like too big of an expenditure of energy. The reason you'll become more attracted to the stillness than to the distraction is because your mind's natural inclination is to go to the most peaceful, restful place possible. Just like water always runs downstream, Your mind naturally always wants to flow to a tranquil place. It might not seem that way. If anything, it might seem like your mind is predisposed to move toward noise and distraction, but it's the truth, and meditation will help you see that truth clearly. If you learn anything from meditation, let it be that being peaceful and restful is actually your natural state. By spending so much time focused on the distractions of life, you've essentially been asking water to run upstream, which is why at times life can feel so hard. Meditation is about getting rid of those distractions and letting the water flow its natural course again, away from the noise and the distractions and back into your heart. Your thoughts. The greatest distractions you're going to face during meditation probably won't be physical ones like an itch or a sound, but rather the distractions caused by your own thoughts. This is because as you begin to repeat your mantra, your thoughts are going to become agitated, especially if you're a novice, and it's because they're jealous. That's right, your thoughts are going to become jealous of your mantra, and you can't really blame them. After all, they've enjoyed free reign in your mind for years and years. After all, they've enjoyed free reign in your mind for years and years. They've come and gone as they pleased, been as loud as they want to be, sometimes even refusing to quiet down at bedtime. They've had complete run of the place. Now, all of a sudden, here comes this mantra entering their territory without permission. And even worse, it won't back down. It's not aggressive or confrontational, but it just keeps coming and coming at the same steady, gentle pace. Rum, 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 rum. So of course your thoughts are going to take exception and try to be even louder than usual. If you've ever struggled with insomnia, it's similar to that. When you're lying there awake in the middle of the night, it all seems like it's impossible to shut off your thoughts. Going back to sleep is clearly what's in everyone's best interest, but your thoughts aren't trying to be good teammates. Instead, it seems like they actually enjoy keeping you awake. It can be 4 a.m., and you know that if you don't get back to your sleep, you're going to be a mess at work the next morning. But your thoughts keep coming in waves, reminding you about everything from trivial little things around the house to big emotional issues about your relationships in life. So just like an insomniac's thoughts fire back to when he tries to go to sleep, your thoughts might begin to push back when your mantra first appears. As you keep saying, rum, a thought about an email you forgot to respond to might enter your head. It might be a pushy, aggressive thought that fights very loudly to make itself heard over your mantra. Whatever you do, don't fight that thought. Don't squinch up your face and try to make that thought go away by concentrating even harder on your mantra. Or even worse, don't get wrapped up thinking about that email and then suddenly realize, man, I've totally forgotten about my mantra. This isn't working today. I'm going to stop meditating and try again tomorrow. Please don't do that. I don't care if you get lost in that thought about an email for 5 minutes. When you realize that you have, simply let that thought go and then gently bring your mantra back to the forefront of your mind. Whatever thought comes into your mind after that, just consider it for a moment, then gently return to your mantra again. The cycle I just described might happen 5 times. It might happen 10 times. It might feel like it's happening for the entire 20 minutes you're sitting in meditation. But no matter how big a fight your thoughts put up, always let your mind drift back to your meditation. To help people better understand this process, I like to use the very simple analogy that your mind is like a cage and your thoughts are like a monkey. When you first sit down and close your eyes, that monkey is going to act up. He's going to start jumping around, making crazy monkey sounds, maybe even start throwing shit at you. Hey, that's just how monkeys do. But if you don't engage that monkey, if you don't scream back at him and show him that you're rattled, eventually that monkey is going to lose interest. Instead of making noise or throwing shit, he'll wander off and be quiet. It might take a couple or even 5 minutes, Just know that however long it takes, your mantra will always tame that monkey. You must accept no matter how loud the distractions seem, at first, as long as you stick with your mantra, eventually you won't hear them anymore. Even if you're still having trouble with this concept, consider a final analogy. Have you ever spent the night in a room with one of those old-fashioned alarm clocks? The ones where you can hear every tick-tock? If so, then you know that when you first try to go to sleep, that ticking next to your head sounds extremely loud. You might even think there is no way I'm ever going to be able to fall asleep with that ticking clock near my ear. But after several minutes of being distracted, your thoughts begin to settle, and gradually, the ticking doesn't seem to lower in volume. Before long, you can't even hear it at all, and you drift off to sleep. It's not that the noise ever went away. That ticking was just as loud when you first lay down as when you eventually went to sleep. It's just that as you become more restful, the sound didn't seem so loud anymore. During meditation, your thoughts are going to be just like that alarm clock. They're never going to go away unless you reach a very advanced stage of enlightenment. Instead, the more peaceful and restful you become, the less and less loud, the less and less you'll actually notice them. As your thoughts settle, they will become less and less intrusive. Whatever you do, try not to get bent out of shape or frustrated when you still hear some thoughts in your mind. If your thoughts are getting too loud again, gently let your mantra replace them. As long as you do it effortlessly, then you're doing it the right way. Even if you never end up returning to your mantra, just by letting your thoughts settle, you'll be giving your nervous system a chance to calm down, which will promote physical healing. This is why, as long as you stay sitting in silence, the only wrong thing you can do during meditation is somehow trying to fight or correct what you're experiencing. Taking inventory. As your thoughts begin to settle, you'll begin to experience the first stage of meditation, which is known as quieter thought, or as I like to call it, taking inventory. During this stage, any thoughts that does come into your head will appear so slowly and serenely that you'll be able to consider it in a way that you never could normally. It's as if the smudge of the world has been wiped off your lenses, and you can finally see your ideas cleanly and clearly. This stage is when you'll encounter some of the most creative ideas and impulses. When Russel Brand talked about having $1 million idea during meditation, I'm sure it came during this inventory stage. Just as many of my most creative ideas, especially as I've mentioned, the ones I've had for my film and TV companies, have come during this stage. Because when I'm taking inventory, I'm still seeing my thoughts. But now it's as if it's from a distance. And taking my ego out of my mind is what's created that distance. When I say ego, I'm not using the word the way it's often used these days, which is to describe a certain kind of confidence or cockiness. When I say ego, I'm talking about your false sense of self, the part of your mind where all your needless fear, greed, judgment, inflexibility, anger, and resentment that you might experience come from. A part of your mind that tells you, falsely, that you have to act a certain way, live a certain way, even think a certain way in order to be okay. This is why my brother, Reverend Run, likes to say that ego stands for edging God out. When you let the anxiety, neediness, and greed take up all the space in your mind, you are edging out your true self. But as you repeat your mantra, that ego will begin to dissipate. Basically, all the BS that you've let pile up in your mind will disappear, and all that will be left are your good thoughts, your pure thoughts, the thoughts that reflect how you truly feel about your life, rather than the thoughts that reflect what you think you should feel, the view that lets you trust in the perfection of the world. These are the thoughts that are going to show you the right decision to make with your career, with your marriage, with your relationship, with your children, with the world. Again, these are pearls of right solutions we keep speaking of, and the inventory stage is the right time to pick them. So don't try to rush through the inventory stage or get frustrated because you're still experiencing thoughts despite repeating your mantra. Instead, consider these thoughts. Not every one of them is going to make you $1 million or help you make an important life choice, But the more time you spend taking inventory, day in and day out, the more familiar you will become with your true self. The self that moves through life free of envy, anger, greed, and hatred, and instead is able to live up to its full potential. You'll also find yourself taking inventory of your body in this stage. If you have a bad habit of slouching, you will be aware of it during this stage. If your belly is starting to get a little big, you will be aware of it during this stage. If you have a chronic tightness in your back or your ankle, you will be aware of it during this stage. It's not that you didn't already know that you tend to slouch or that your belly is getting softer, but you've been putting off dealing with those facts. Or if you do address them, it's with a distracted mind, one that filters them through a prism of anxiety or sadness, which is why people will look in the mirror, see that they're a little overweight, and think things like, I hate the way I look, or I look disgusting. When you say something like that about yourself, that means there's too much anxiety and sadness taking up space in your mind. But when you sit in silence and really listen to your body, you can't hide from these truths anymore. And more important, instead of addressing them with a sad and stressed mind, you'll be looking at yourself clearly. Instead of saying, I hate how I look, you'll just say, I'm getting a bit thick in the middle. Time to watch what I eat. And then, most important, you'll actually do it. Because when you meditate, you can change on a dime. When you let go of anxiety, you won't want to ease into a better you. You want to go there right away. Yes, the more you come to know your true self, the more you want to make that self better. Pure consciousness. After a few minutes of taking inventory, both of your thoughts and your body, you will begin to enter what I call the stage of pure consciousness. This is a stage where your thoughts subside and through your mantra, you are able to access the limitless pool of stillness inside you. My teacher, Bob Roth, describes the state of pure consciousness this way. Think of your mind as being like the ocean. On the surface of the ocean, it's choppy and there are a lot of waves. That's your distracted mind. But at the bottom of the ocean, it's still. That's your mind in a state of pure consciousness. Why is it so important to spend time down there? Because, as my friend David Lynch puts it, ideas are like fish. If you want to catch little fish, you can stay in the shallow water. But if you want to catch the big fish, you've got to go deeper. Down deep, the fish are more powerful and more pure. They're huge and abstract, and they're beautiful. Not only is this the stage when you're going to catch the big fish in your mind, but it's also the stage that promotes the physical healing that comes through meditation. It's in the deep consciousness that the strain and stress that your thoughts have been placing on your nervous system will fade away. As you become more restful, the different parts of your brain will finally begin to reconnect. The stress on your amygdala will be fully reduced. Side note, falling asleep. Some people find that they occasionally fall asleep during their meditation. If you find this happening to you, don't get frustrated or worried. If you're tired, especially if you haven't been getting enough sleep, then it's not unusual for your body to look for that rest during your meditation. So just like everything else you experience in meditation, don't fight the urge to sleep. Instead, if you find yourself getting sleepy, allow yourself to drift away for a bit. And when you do wake back up, gently return to your mantra. As long as you're consistent with your practice, you'll find that after a while, you won't get so tired anymore when you meditate. End note. And as the stress begins to go down, your blood pressure is going to go down too. And reducing high blood pressure and calming your nervous system are arguably the most beneficial physical aspects of meditation. When it's over. Okay, so you've been sitting in meditation, first engaging your thoughts, and then slowly sinking into a state of pure consciousness. Your eyes are closed, and your mantra has led you down deep into the ocean of stillness inside of you. Maybe you even caught a big fish. So how do you know that your 20 minutes are up? The easiest way is before you start to meditate, simply take your smartphone and set the timer for 20 minutes. but please set it on a soft or gentle alarm. This is because sounds can appear much louder when you're meditating. Like I said, sometimes when I'm meditating and I clear my throat, or even just swallow, it sounds like a bomb just went off. Little sounds that you wouldn't even notice during the course of your normal day might sound like they're coming through a movie theater speaker when you meditate. The issue is when your phone's buzzer goes off, it can not only be very jarring, but it can also negatively affect how much you take away from your session. This is because when your session is over, you want to ease your way back into the world. If you jump up startled when your buzzer goes off and you open your eyes right away, you're going to lose a lot of the benefits of the restfulness you just experienced. It's similar to how you can't just jump in your car and drive off on a frigid day. Instead, you have to take a minute and let it warm up so it can adjust to the conditions. Your mind is the same way after meditation. When that timer goes off, you shouldn't just open your eyes, pick up your phone, and start responding to emails you missed while you were meditating. Instead, give your mind a minute or so to adjust to coming out of that ocean of stillness and back into the world. I remember a scene in Seinfeld where Jerry was telling Elaine to let his car warm up for a minute before she drove it. And George chimed in, "That's a tough minute. It's like waiting in the shower for the conditioner to work." Well, letting yourself warm up after meditating can be a tough minute too at first, but don't give in to any temptation you feel to rush back into the world. You don't have to keep repeating your mantra, but at least keep your eyes closed. Just listen to yourself breathe and try to soak up all the peacefulness you just experienced so that you can carry it with you as you re-enter the world. Side note, it might seem like obvious advice, but if you decide to use the timer on your phone, make sure all of its other notification settings like email, phone calls, and texts are turned off. Just like you don't want your phone ringing during the middle of a movie or a lecture, you don't want to find out you get a new text or email during your meditation. If this begins to be a problem for you, but you still feel like you need a timer, just turn your phone off completely and use an old-fashioned egg timer, preferably one that doesn't tick though, or stopwatch. End note. One of the primary reasons I recommend using a timer for beginners, especially, is because at first it's easy for them to be distracted by worrying about whether they've been meditating long enough. If you're struggling with discomfort, distractions, or even both, time might feel like it's moving slowly, to the point where you might begin to ask yourself, hasn't it been 20 minutes yet? I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. And instead of focusing on your mantra, you're constantly opening your eyes and checking the clock, which is going to prevent you from truly slipping into a state of pure consciousness. Side note, keep going. I often get asked, is it okay if I meditate longer than 20 minutes? And the answer is, of course. If that timer goes off, but you're enjoying the bliss so much that you don't want to stop, then don't. 20 minutes is only a recommended minimum time. If you want to go for another 10 or 15 minutes, just press alarm off and keep going. End note. But once you set that timer for 20 minutes and press start, you won't have the excuse of checking the clock to fall back on. Even if it feels like you've been going for more than 20 minutes, you'll know that if you haven't heard the buzzer, then you just need to consider that distraction for a moment and let it go. One of the major benefits of meditation is reducing stress. So to stress over whether you've been meditating long enough would be extremely counterproductive. When that timer does go off, remember that no matter how many minutes you've rested in stillness, you're going to be better off for it, not only in that day, but for the rest of your life. Take a few moments to acknowledge what you've accomplished and be grateful for it. Notice how relaxed and contented you feel and allow yourself to marinate in that sensation for several more moments. You don't have to count to 60 or set your timer for an extra minute. Just soak in all that peacefulness until you feel ready to return to the world. Then, open your eyes. How you'll feel. When you finally do open your eyes and re-enter the world, you'll feel a difference immediately. The feeling isn't the same every time, since every meditation is different, but you'll always feel better than you did before you started meditating. If you went to bed and woke up with a stuffy nose, chances are it'll be cleared up a few minutes into your session. If you woke up with a headache, that'll probably be gone too. Certainly, if you woke up feeling stressed about the day ahead of you, after 20 minutes, those worries won't be weighing on you as heavily anymore. Again, this is because meditation is finally giving your nervous system a chance to calm down. Even when you're asleep, your nervous system is still often working overtime. So when it finally gets a chance to rest during meditation, you'll be amazed at how quickly your body can heal itself. Clearing up stuffy noses and getting rid of headaches are just some of what I call the normal post-meditation effects. On other days, when you finally do open your eyes, the room might appear brighter and prettier than it did before. Colors will seem more vivid and alive. You'll notice the birds chirping outside and appreciate their beautiful melodies. You might even feel a little silly. Lots of mornings, I certainly start giggling because because of my appreciation of life is so much more vibrant. It sounds like a funny thing for a hip-hop guy to say, but a lot of times, I even experience tears of joy. When you begin to feel more alive and energized day in and day out, you'll be entering a state of what I call walking meditation, where you are extending that sense of stillness out of your meditation and into your day. It might only last an hour or two before it begins to fade, but it's still an amazing experience for even that short amount of time. When you get a glimpse of how you could be living your entire life, it's going to inspire you to become even more dedicated to your practice. Again, that sensation doesn't happen after just one or two practices. To live in a state of walking meditation, you must make the practice a permanent part of your lifestyle. But for now, just have that faith that the more you practice, the more regularly that state will appear, until eventually you will be able to make the state of connectedness your normal state. The famous guru, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught the Beatles to meditate and started the Transcendental Meditation movement, once described the process this way to Science of Mind magazine. The situation is as though we were able to take a white cloth and dip it in yellow dye. We bring the cloth out and put it in the sun, and the yellow fades away. Then we put it back again and again into the color, and back again and again into the sun. In the dye, it keeps becoming yellow and yellow and yellow, then fading, fading, fading in the sun. But over time, the color becomes permanent. That happens to the mind through regular practice. That unbounded awareness, that pure consciousness, the field of all laws of nature, becomes ingrained in all activities of the mind. End quote. Never forget that we all have the ability to turn our white cloths yellow over time. It might be a grind at first, but if you are patient with the process, eventually the change in you will become permanent. In time, the noise of the world is going to fade out, and you'll be able to hear your higher self all the time. Instead of a fleeting, momentary experience, that unbounded awareness will become ingrained in your mind. This is why it's so important to practice meditation every day. Gaining lasting happiness can only come through sustained, consistent effort. You're not going to get muscles from one push-up. You're not going to lose 20 pounds just by skipping one meal, or letting go of the burdens of the world after sitting in silence for 20 minutes just one time. In order to achieve lasting happiness in this lifetime, you must make a real commitment to this process. Patience is the key. The final piece of advice I want to give you on your practice is very simple. Be patient. Again, every single one of us is capable of experiencing the happiness that comes from stillness. You just have to be patient and stick with the practice. As Deepak has always told me, Russel, the number one tool every meditator must have is patience. In fact, a funny thing happened when I first started writing this book. I was sitting on an airplane, working on one of the chapters, when I felt someone settle into the seat across from me. I was so focused on what I was writing that I didn't look up. But after a few moments, I felt a tap on my arm. When I looked up, who was sitting there but Deepak? I told him what I was working on, and he smiled and said, "Russell, please tell your readers that while it takes time for every fruit to ripen, eventually they will all fall from the tree." After he said that, I was the one who had to smile, because it was such a beautiful way to express the importance of sticking with this practice. Just like fruit, people take time to ripen. Sometimes I have to remind myself of this truth. Believe me, there are mornings when I roll over to meditate, and it feels like my mind is fighting me every step of the way. When I'm having one of those mornings, I'll gently remind myself who is the boss. I'll think, "Brother, you can make all the noise you want, but you're still going to be sitting here with me for these 20 minutes. And when my mind hears that, when it realizes that it's not going to trick me into getting up and giving up, then it usually settles down pretty quickly. Take your time and let your mind settle. You might want it to happen right away, but wanting things to happen on your own terms is probably what has you stressed out in the first place. Take your time and remember that what I'm promoting isn't a race toward being present. Instead, I'm just helping you start the journey to where you are supposed to be. And then have faith that if you stay on this path I've laid out before you, in short time, you are going to find the incredible jewels that are waiting for you within your own mind. Further reading. As I mentioned, please don't be rigid or inflexible in your approach to meditation. If this book is able, as I know it can, to help you transform your life, then it will likely be all you need on the subject. But if after reading this, you are motivated to learn more about meditation, by all means, I encourage you to do so. A great place to visit is tm.org, which is where you can learn even more about that practice and how to meet with an instructor from the organization. TM does charge a fee for new students, but they're always flexible in taking people's situations into account. As Bob Roth put it to me, they've never once turned down someone who wanted to learn TM because they couldn't afford it. Also be sure to check out davidlynchfoundation.org, where you can find out more about all the wonderful outreach organizations and what it does, including work with young people, veterans, and American Indians. In terms of books, please make it a point to read 2 ancient texts, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and the Bhagavad Gita. They might come off a little dense initially, but I promise you that they contain incredible insights into the type of bliss meditation will be taking you toward. The same is true for Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi. It's one of the most important books ever written on meditation and spirituality. It's especially powerful for those looking to reconcile the yogic and Christian traditions. I also strongly recommend 2 books by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now and A New Earth. They describe presence in a much simpler and more eloquent way than I ever could. These books were a great eye-opener to me and helped me understand how being present is our only goal on earth. Another great book to help you understand the mind-body connection is my friend Deepak Chopra's The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And finally, I'd also welcome you to check out 2 of my own books, Do You and Super Rich. They both explain how one can use the power inside of oneself to access true happiness and success. Acknowledgements. Many people have helped guide me down the path to stillness, but I'd like to thank 2 great inspirations in particular, Deepak Chopra and my partner in crime, Bob Roth, aka The Monk. Also by Russel Simmons, with Chris Morrow, The Happy Vegan, a guide to living a long, healthy, and successful life, an inspiring guide to the benefits of conscious eating and veganism. Super Rich, a powerful primer to spiritual enlightenment through finding happiness in all aspects of life. And Do You, in 12 steps, discover the path to realizing your dreams. That is the end of Success Through Stillness by Russel Simmons with Chris Morrow. This book is a New York Times bestselling This is the New York Times bestselling author of Do You and Super Rich. It itself is a New York Times bestseller, and it's done a wonderful job, in my opinion, of teaching meditation very simply. Thus the title, Meditation Made Simple. I very much hope that you enjoyed it. I certainly learned a lot from it, and I'll be happy to share it with many more. Have a great day, guys, and continue to read, to learn, to grow as much as you can, however you can. #Elevate.